Hey, what's up guys? Dave here from CNC3D. So we thought we'd take a moment to go back through some recent changes to our CNC3D Commander software and specifically take a look at some of the changes that we've made with regards to getting your Nighthawk connected. So if you've received a Nighthawk controller within probably about the last 2 or 3 months, today is the 30th of May 2022. You will notice that there are a couple of changes to the original configuration video for getting your Nighthawk connected either up to Wi-Fi or getting it connected up to Bluetooth. This video is going to be dedicated purely just towards getting your connectivity sorted out to make sure that you can definitely access your Nighthawk and get straight off USB. We have previously talked about USB and some of the issues that can occur with using it. Basically, with the Nighthawk, it does come with a USB connection on there. The main purpose of that USB connection is essentially for you to be able to set up either Wi-Fi or set up Bluetooth, and it can also be used for firmware updates down the track when we do push them through. So the first step that you should go through is using the USB to your computer and then basically going through and setting up either Wi-Fi or setting up Bluetooth. So we've just got our CNC3D Commander software here that we're looking at. What we need to do is we need to basically connect up to our machine. Now, as you can see, we've just currently got our Nighthawk controller connected via USB. It has automatically made this COM13 on here. So we're just going to go ahead and connect up to our controller. So the first thing you'll notice, this particular Nighthawk that we have on here is one that we would configure and use for our QB2 machines. So this information at the top here, so it's Nighthawk CNC 2.1 and it has been specifically programmed for a QB2 and the maintenance schedule has already been assigned. So what you will notice for new users with a Queen Bee, a UCarve or a QB2 machine is it will ask you the first time that you connect to it to basically go through and follow the maintenance guide and the initial setup guide. After that, you should be able to reconnect back up to your machine. It may also show you the new machine config wizard. We've already gone past this step because we know that all of our machines, such as the QB2, the Queen Bee, etc., they're already pre-configured from our factory and essentially ready to go for you straight out of the box. So this step here, where we're going to be trying to connect up to either a Wi-Fi network or to Bluetooth, we're going to take a look at both of those here today, just to make sure that you guys can get a really nice stable connection to your Nighthawk and avoid the typical ground noise and EMI interference that can happen on USB connections. So we've just connected up to our controller here. Let's just go in straight into the Connections/ESP32 tab. Now, this process also applies to any ESP32 GRBL based controller, including the popular xPROV5 controller. So you guys can follow this process as well and get off that USB connection. So if we go to Connections/ESP32, you can see by default when we send out our Nighthawk controllers, they are configured to be Wi-Fi direct access point mode. Let's just first of all discuss some of the options that we have here. So the first thing is you've got the option of disabling all wireless communications if you wish. That will mean that the only possible way that you can connect to your controller will be via the USB. The next option down is Wi-Fi connect to existing network. Now this is the recommended way for you to use one of our Nighthawk controllers, and that is to basically get your Nighthawk or your ESP32 controller to connect up to your existing Wi-Fi network that a lot of your other devices will already be on, such as the computer that you're using to configure this actual connection. And that will allow you to basically have a good way of being able to transfer files to your controller, and at the same time you can access, say, the web UI without needing to change internet connections on your computer. The next option down, of course, is our Wi-Fi direct access point mode. Now, Wi-Fi direct access point mode basically tells the Nighthawk that you want to connect directly to its Wi-Fi network So that is the default option. You will notice in your Wi-Fi list when you turn your Nighthawk on for the first time, you may see Nighthawk CNC showing up in there. It is a good way for you to be able to connect to it if you do struggle to get connected to your standard Wi-Fi network. Basically, we've acknowledged there's quite a few users that, they do have their machines in their sheds and in their garages, and sometimes they don't have a good Wi-Fi connection. So using the direct access point mode option is a good way for you to be able to get around it. The next option, of course, is for you to use Bluetooth. Now, we have done extensive testing on using Bluetooth, and we're actually very, very happy with it. And it functions the same way that USB does. For those of you that don't want to have to upload your jobs to the SD card on the Nighthawk, you can choose to use Bluetooth as long as you've got a Bluetooth enabled laptop. Alternatively, you can purchase a Bluetooth Wi-Fi dongle. They're quite inexpensive, and they will give you a really solid communication to your controller and give you a lot of functionality outside of just the standard SD card runs. You can choose to stream data to them and run macros from within Commander if you wish. So we're going to take a look at doing Bluetooth as well. So the first step is, let's basically follow the standard procedure that you do get with your Nighthawk controller in the manual, or if you purchase a fully built machine from CNC3D. So we're going to choose connect to existing network first, which is the first step. Now, the easiest thing for you to do is basically use the Wi-Fi wizard. Now, you will notice here, now that we've chosen this option, you can see that the areas that that don't relate to the connect to existing network have all been grayed out. If you did want to access these settings and obviously just configure everything for later on, you can choose to untick this relevant options only box, and it will give you the option for setting up your host settings and setting up your Wi-Fi access point mode settings. But to keep things easy, we've only shown you the actual settings that relate to the type of wireless connectivity that you have. So we're going to put this onto Wi-Fi connect to existing network option. Now, the easiest way for you to set this up is very simple. We're just going to click on the Wi-Fi wizard down here at the bottom, and it gives you basically tells you exactly what you need to do. So this function will quickly set your IP, subnet mask, and default gateway values, and it will change your network connection to static so your controller's IP doesn't change at all. So we're going to automate this process. Now, in order for this to work, we're assuming that your computer that you're currently on right now that's running Commander is already connected to your existing Wi-Fi network. We actually rely on this in order to be able to determine what to set the values to on your Nighthawk. So if you've already gone through and the particular computer you're using is already connected to your existing network and your Nighthawk is in range of that network, then what we can do is just follow through this wizard. So it says here, are you connected to your network and ready to set these values? Let's say yes to here. Now, the first question that it asks you is to choose a number between 100 and 255. So the reason why we're choosing this is we're going to use the specific number that you're entering here to determine what the last part of your IP address that will be assigned to your Nighthawk will be on your network. And the reason why we ask you to choose a number between 100 and 255 is because a lot of people may have multiple devices at home where their IP addresses are automatically being set by their home routers, and they usually do that in a linear fashion. So your actual router itself will have a final IP number, or an octet as we call it, of 1 typically. And so then basically any other device that joins your network, it will automatically assign the next ones after that. So it'll be 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then if you were to buy another tablet, then that would be number 6. So in order for us to make sure that your router acknowledges that we would like to keep our Nighthawk controller with a static IP address, it means that that number will never change on your network and will always be easy for you to find. Now, by default, we've put 155 in here as a value. You're welcome to keep this number if you'd like, but whatever you choose to do, it's a good idea after you've gone and picked this number to maybe print out a sticker or a label that just tells you exactly what the IP address is of your Nighthawk, and then basically you will always know what IP address to connect to. So let's leave this as 155 and click on OK. Now, what you will notice on here is that we have updated, obviously down the bottom here, it was DHCP, now it's set to static. We've put this 192.168.20.155 here. I'll just OK out of this box. So we've got the IP address now in here with our 155. We know what our subnet is because we've pulled it directly off the computer's information for your connection. And we've also pulled the gateway automatically for you. So these two numbers here, you have nothing really to touch there. This one's automatically been done for you with the number that we specified, which makes things easy. And we've gone through and we've set the mode to static, which means that the IP address will always stay the same now. So now what we really need to do, we've already got the IP address details, but now we need to tell it exactly what actual network we're going to be connecting to. So the easiest way to do this is just to click on Show Wi-Fi List, and this should bring up a whole bunch of networks that are visible specifically to the Nighthawk itself. So these networks aren't actually retrieved from your computer. They are the ones that are actually within range of the Nighthawk. So as you can see, we've got our CNC3D one at the top here. That is the network we're going to use, and it gives you an indication on signal strength and also whether or not it is a secure network or not. So we're going to click on CNC3D and just hit select. Now we do need to enter in the password for the network underneath here. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. And now that we have this typed in here, we're pretty much ready to go. But just before we go and do that, there's a couple of quick checks that should be worthwhile for you to just inspect and take a look at. And those can be found in the protocol settings tab just here. And so what you'll notice is you've got HTTP access with a tick in it by default on a Nighthawk and the specified port, which is port 80. So this is the port that will be used when you try to access the web UI built into the Nighthawk. And so it's a good idea if you want web access to always leave this enabled. If you don't want to allow web access, you can choose to untick this. And of course you can choose to change a port on there as well. Now underneath here, the same goes. You've got your direct access port. That's enabled by default on the Nighthawk, and it's usually on port 23, which traditionally was used as what's called a telnet data port. And basically it is exactly the way, if once we were on Wi-Fi, that Commander will actually communicate with your Nighthawk. So you just need to remember that port 23 by default in Commander. If you put an IP address in when you're in IP mode, we'll automatically add the 23 to the end if you don't put it on there. But if you do change that number, then you'll obviously need to change that port in here as well. So we can pretty much leave this as it is because we're going to go through and explore this, but the most important thing is that we want these two values enabled, which they should be by default. So let's just go ahead and hit Update Connection Settings. Now you can see here on this alert, so the connection settings have been updated. Please turn your Nighthawk controller off and back on, and then allow 10 to 20 seconds for the controller to re-establish its connection. So let's just go ahead now and power cycle the Nighthawk. Alright, so we've just turned our Nighthawk controller off and we've waited about a second or two, and then we've turned the controller back on. So let's just hit disconnect here at the top in Commander, and we're still on COM13. So let's just go connect here now and wait for it to pull all of the data off the controller. Sometimes you may notice a bit of a delay when it's initially connecting. You just need to give it a bit of time to connect up to your existing network. If you see the controller status down the bottom here is just a dash, what you can do is just hit disconnect again after a few seconds, and then just try connecting again, and then that should actually resume your connection. So as you can see, we've just tried reconnecting now. We can see down the bottom here the controller status is idle, and if you have a look on this tab, you've got this green text here. So as you can see, it says SSID, state not connected, IP address 192.168.20.155, and so it says it's not connected. So how can we address this issue? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can. So the first thing that we can do is we can click on our start button here, and we're going to type in CMD to bring up our command prompt. Now that we're in our command prompt, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to see whether or not we do actually have a device on our network which may already have that IP address. So in this case, we're going to go ping 192.168.20.155. And so we're trying to ping this connection, and we're not getting any replies at all. So it says destination host unreachable. So we're pretty certain that there's not going to be another appliance on the network that has this specific IP address. So let's just go back through and try to figure out exactly what's going on. So there's a couple of things that we can do. The first one is we can hit disconnect in Commander. We're just going to quickly turn off our actual Nighthawk, so let's power it off for a second. While that's left off, let's just go into the help button here, and then we're going to click on the raw data window. Now this is a good little tool that you can use for troubleshooting. Let me just bring this into view here. And it will show you all of the commands that are being transacted between Commander and the actual controller itself. And it's a handy thing because it shows you all of the data that's being sent. So if we just go ahead and turn our Nighthawk controller back on, and then now we're just going to refresh just to make sure that we definitely have the same port on here. If we were to quickly hit the connect button here and open up our raw data window, we can see that there's some data coming through there. It's just trying to connect right now. Connecting, connecting, connecting. Disconnected, connecting, connecting. And eventually it will stop trying to connect after approximately about 5 or 6 seconds. So let's just take a look here. So the state is definitely not connected. If we scroll back up here and take a look at what it's done, we can see cannot connect to CNC3D. So more than likely what's happened here is we may not have put in the correct password when we've been trying to actually connect to the network. So first thing that we'll do, we're still connected up on USB at this point in time. We are just going to go and modify this password, which is more than likely the reason why it's not actually working. So let's try typing in here the password again. And let's even just try maybe changing this IP address. So we can just change this to say 20. We'll do that and we'll hit update connection settings. Now again, we're just going to hit OK on here, and we can just hit disconnect in Commander right now, and let's just turn our Nighthawk off, and then we will plug it back in again now, and we'll give that a few seconds. Let's just hit connect here now, bring up our data window, and that was much faster this time. So it has actually connected successfully. So in this case, we've actually put the wrong password in there when we were trying to configure our Nighthawk, and that's why it wasn't able to connect up to your network. So because we are connected on USB and our Nighthawk has successfully connected, this little window has popped up here. So what it's basically telling you is we've detected that your Nighthawk is currently connected up to your local network, and we will give you the option to automatically switch on to IP mode if you wish. So let's just say yes to this, and you can see here that it has now changed this up here from COM and then COM13. We now have the IP address that's loaded into here with our 23, which was the port we had back in our protocol settings here, and that's the IP address that we've assigned. So now we know that we're definitely on Wi-Fi, and as you can see here, this green text is now saying connected IP. So that's pretty much ready to go. At this stage, we have the ability to load our files on there if we wish. So if we wanted to, we could choose to say upload a job. So let's just see, we'll just try loading comlog on there and we'll see what happens. So that's been successful, and as you can see, it's loaded that file on there. So if you want to now, you can choose to delete that file if you wish. We're just doing this really just for testing the Wi-Fi connection. So that's pretty much how you get connected onto Wi-Fi within here. Now, let's take a look at Bluetooth. So for those users that have difficulty getting their machine onto Wi-Fi, or if you are using a mesh network, certain mesh networks create a separate network that's loosely linked to the original one. The Nighthawk does not like communicating through these types of networks. We've also seen similar things with the xPROV5 and other ESP32 GRBL controllers such as Fluid NC. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to try to get onto Bluetooth, and we can take a look at the difference. So one of the main differences, we're still connected here on Wi-Fi. If we click on load job and we try to say choose a file, let me just see if I can get some files off here. I should hopefully have some NC files. There we go, car laser engraving. And then if we try to hit run job now, it says this feature is not available while connected via Wi-Fi. You must be connected via USB to use this feature. That also does apply to Bluetooth, which acts the same way as USB. So basically, you will not be able to just stream jobs directly off your computer on Wi-Fi. But if you do connect up via Bluetooth, then you absolutely can. So let's go ahead and take a look at how to set up Bluetooth now. So the first thing we need to do is go into our connections/ESP32 tab on the end here, and we are going to change this to Bluetooth. Now if you take a look, we've automatically put you onto this Bluetooth tab, so you can see what the device name is here. So this is how it should show up in your list, and then we're just going to hit update connection settings. Now same as before, all we need to do is basically just turn the Nighthawk off, and we'll do a quick disconnect up here. We'll turn our Nighthawk off and we'll wait a few seconds, and then we'll plug it back in again. And now what we'll do is we're going to establish a Bluetooth connection link. Now for the purposes of this video, we are using Windows 10. So the easiest way for you to basically set up a Bluetooth device is just for you to click on the start button, type in blue, and you can see that it brings up Bluetooth and other devices settings. So we'll launch that. Let's just make this a bit smaller. Alright, so if we take a look here, we can't see really anything on here. We are going to click on add Bluetooth or other device. We're going to choose Bluetooth. We're going to wait and see if it finds the device on here. So we'll just give it a moment to actually fire up. It shouldn't take too long for the Nighthawk to do this. Alright, there it is. So we've got Nighthawk BT. We're just going to click on that. It's already trying to connect, and there you go. Your device is ready to go. And now you can see that it's paired. So just click on done. Now the way that this actually works is it creates a virtual COM port, just the same way that you would have had COM in this list up here of COM13. If we were to click on refresh now, you'll see that it's created just these two COM ports on here. So we've got COM11 and we've got COM12. So what we want to do is both of these now relate to the Nighthawk. So these have been created because we've set up the Bluetooth on the actual Nighthawk. So what we'll do first is we're going to take a look at Device Manager, just so you can actually see the difference. So if you right click on your start button, you have the option of going into Device Manager here. So we'll click on that. Let's just bring this down here into view. And you'll notice that in the Device Manager, there's a whole bunch of options. They're all in alphabetical order. The one that we're looking for is ports. So you'll see this little arrow next to it. If we click on that, that will expand it. And you can see that it's now created a standard serial over Bluetooth link, and there's two of them. And one is COM11 and the other one is COM12. Now, we can only connect to one COM port at a time. Now, what will happen in this case is if you try to connect to one of these in Commander, it will either connect straight away or it will completely freeze Commander. There is no particular way at this stage that we've been able to work around doing this or how to actually resolve this. But the good news is once you do know the right COM port for this, you should always be able to connect up to the same one. So usually the smaller number will be the correct number for you to choose, which is COM11. So if we just close out of our device manager here, and we're going to choose COM11 in this list, let's see if it actually connects up to our Nighthawk or not. So we're just going to wait a second, and there it is. So the smaller number was definitely the correct value. Now we actually connected up directly to our Nighthawk via the use of Bluetooth, and this essentially eliminates the need for having the USB cable, which can be prone to interference and noise, and creates a virtual, essentially a USB link. And this function will also allow you to then use the load job function. So you can choose a particular job, like say this car laser engraving, or we got our unicorn job here. This now gives you the ability to actually load these jobs. It also gives you the flexibility to be able to view your jobs as well. As you can see, this one just looks green because it is a raster laser engraving. So it's just going to have to pan through each and every one of these lines in order to do what it needs to do. So it doesn't look too pretty, but that's basically one function that you do have the ability to do. Now, the other trade-off here is you can refresh files that are on your SD card. If we had some on this particular Nighthawk, you can see these jobs appearing here, and you can also choose to click on any in this list and run them. The difference is on Bluetooth, you don't have the ability to actually upload jobs. So that is something that is specifically reserved for Wi-Fi access only. But from the tests that we've done, it's quite stable for you to stream jobs on Bluetooth. You just need to make sure that your computer definitely stays in range of the machine at all times, so then that way there's a nice stable communication for you. So we're pretty much good to go now on Bluetooth. If you were to say, for example, start up tomorrow, so you shut down your computer at the start of the day, and the next day you choose to turn your computer on, or you turn your Nighthawk on first, whichever one you do, once both of them are on at the same time, it should re-establish your Bluetooth connection for you automatically. Some of the most common issues that we do find with Bluetooth is usually if you haven't been connected to your machine via Bluetooth for a little while and you've taken your machine away and you've paired some other devices on there, sometimes it won't automatically connect to your Nighthawk and create those COM ports for you. So a good idea is just for you to go back down to your start button, type in blue, and then basically you've got Bluetooth and other devices. You can see any of these items in here. Sometimes what you can do is click on Nighthawk BT. You can choose to remove the device, and then you can choose to re-add it back in there again. And that will very quickly and easily re-establish that Bluetooth connection. Once you've done that, you can obviously just hit the refresh button to show the COM ports again back in Commander, and then you can choose to reconnect back up to your controller again. And so that makes things nice and simple for you to be able to go through and do your connections. Also keep in mind that if you are in Bluetooth mode, you're not able to access the web UI, which is a really handy thing for the people that enjoy using it. For the more sort of computer-centric people out there, a lot of people like the flexibility and the functionality of using our CNC3D Commander software. And we personally have tried our very best to make it as good as we possibly can. So that pretty much sort of covers everything that you guys really need to know at this stage. As we do more modifications to Commander, we'll look at putting more content out to explain how all of those things work. But please make a decision when you first get your machine. Definitely connect up the USB cable for the purposes of setting up either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and then we highly recommend packing away your USB cable completely disconnect it from your computer and from the Nighthawk controller and put it away in a drawer once the Wi-Fi has been set up. If, for example, like with some devices on Wi-Fi, you experience some issues connecting, it's a good idea just to obviously turn your Nighthawk off and then turn it back on again. And also sometimes if you're on Wi-Fi, try turning your modem off and back on again, as some people have probably experienced at home. Sometimes you have connection issues, and just turning something off and back on again can solve the problem, 80% of the time. So I hope this video has been informative for a lot of you guys out there who are just getting started with your Nighthawk controller or with your xPROV5. And thank you very much for all of your support, and have a great day.